have you guys ever, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, growing up, and whenever it was your birthday coming up, Christmas coming up, you always made a wish list, or you would hint your parents, I want this for my birthday. I want to get this gift, I want to get that, and you would make a list, or you would tell your parents, I want to get this gift, I really want this, whatever it is. I know that when I was growing up in Mexico, we didn't celebrate Christmas the way it's celebrated here in the States. Now it is, because of tradition, people moving back and forth. Now it is celebrated the same way as here. Opening presents on the Christmas day. But it was traditional, and it still is traditional over there, that you don't receive, not completely, but you would expect gifts into January 6th, which is Dia de los Reyes. Or they believed that that was the day that the Magi, the three wise men, it wasn't three though, they would arrive with Jesus and they brought the gifts. But the tradition over there was that it is in Mexico where you take your shoe, clean shoe, over to whoever you want somebody to give you a gift and leave it over at their house the night before, and then the day after you come back and pick it up and you have all kinds of goodies there. I would always look towards, forward to that, because I would get different snacks. That's what I was looking forward to. Different snacks, and the Mexican snacks, the gancitos, the Mexican version of the Twinkies, and all kinds of candies. And that's what I was looking forward to. I wasn't expecting, big Tonka trucks or anything like that, which of course I would hint my parents I want something big like that. But then when we moved to the States, I remember one time, I asked for, I don't exactly remember what it was, a toy. And at the time we didn't have much money, so I had saved up money from collecting cans, aluminum cans, and selling them. And then remember we went to the thrift store. This is right before Christmas. We went to the thrift store, and Transformers was big back then. And I just happened to see this big old Decepticon Transformer, $1. $1. I bought it right away. Even though it was the bad guy. It was the bad guy that said, I gotta have it. And it was big, it would transform, it would change shapes and everything. It was awesome. But see, that didn't last too long. I broke it because messing with it. What do you expect for $1? But see, also when you're a kid in elementary school, I'm pretty sure, I think they still do that, where they give give the kids chocolates to sell. Go around, and if you sell, 1,000 boxes of chocolates, you get a little watch, or you get, whatever. And when you get the little prize, you look at it like, man, this is disappointing. I was just expecting a boom box or something, because I remember I did that. My sisters did that. And same thing, like, this is it. The picture looks like it's all awesome, lights and everything looks good. They even describe it to you when you go to the cafeteria meetings, and they're explaining to you, yeah, you're gonna get this bicycle, this 10-speed, and then you get this little bracelet. Good job. 1,000 boxes or 1,000 chocolates. Well, today, we're going to meet somebody, a woman, that received a gift from God. And then she gives this gift back to God. She had been praying for many years. And now she received this gift. But before receiving the gift, she had made a promise to God. And she keeps her vow. We're going to be in 1 Samuel today. 1 Samuel chapter 1. 1 Samuel chapter 1, turn there with me. We're going to be reading the whole first chapter and part of chapter 2. So it says in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1, it says, there was a certain man for Ramadan, a Suphite from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Suph, the Ephraimite. He had two wives. One was called Hannah, and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came from Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave double portion because he loved her. And the Lord had closed her womb. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year, and whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look at your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. Verse 12. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk, and said to her, How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my heart, anguish and grief. Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked from him. She said, May your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. Early the next morning they rose again and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home in Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. When her husband Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, After the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. Do what seems best to you. Her husband Elkanah told her, Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with the 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, Pardon me, my lord, as surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying before the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now give him to the Lord, for his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there. So we know that Elkanah is not a perfect man. Otherwise, if I had started the chapter saying Elkanah is a perfect man, I think the chapter would have ended there. But Elkanah obviously was not perfect because he had multiple wives, 2 wives. And in that culture at the time, it was common to have more than one wife, even though God did not approve, and he still does not approve of having multiple wives. His name, Elkanah, means God has prepared. And we later know that God prepared him in order to be able to let Hannah conceive. And then another man came after that, Samuel. And then we know that through that bloodline comes King David, Solomon, and then down to our Lord Jesus. So God had prepared Elkanah, and that's what his name means. Because he is an imperfect man, and God can use anybody, especially those who are imperfect, to make his glory, his plan, his will come through. God, all of us, God prepares all of us for his good works. It says that in Ephesians 2:10, because he knows us before he creates us in our mother's womb. So he already knows the plan that he has for us. He already knows what his will be for us. And it's just up to us whether we want to obey. Remember last week I mentioned that we have no choice, but we have the freedom to disobey. God has already made a choice for us. Now it's up to us to obey or disobey. And obviously we see that the two wives did not get along. You know, there's a show, I don't know if it still airs, one of the cable channels called Sister Wives, which is obviously we know it's unbiblical, ungodly, and I believe it's about 4 or 5 sisters that are living together with one husband, and they all have, of course, multiple children. The weird thing about it is that I don't understand is that each one of these wives living in the same home, they have to have their own entrance into the house. So they have multiple entrances into the house, and one cannot go in through the other one. They have to go through their own assigned, which is, I don't understand that. Maybe that's part of their culture or their belief or whatever it is, but they cannot enter, and they cannot exit either through each other's doors. You have to go use your own specific door. But, you know, as I was looking up this show, obviously it's going to have drama, and it's going to have, they got to add something to it. You know, they don't get along. They disagree on many things. They each raise their children differently in the same home. Of course, by the direction of the husband, but still, you know, it's not godly. They don't get along. And Hannah and his other wife was always picking on her, teasing her. You know, have sons, you don't. It says in verse 3, year after year this man went up from his own town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Later we know that these 2 priests were just corrupted people, taking advantage of the people that are coming to sacrifice. But he would go year after year to worship the Lord. And year after year, every year that they would come up, Hannah would feel like, this year I'll probably get pregnant. This year I'll probably get pregnant. And see, women have this inner, I don't know how to describe it, but it's in them, it's engraved in them. They yearn to be mothers. It's an instinct that is already engraved in them. You know, when they're little, I see this with my little ones, when they're little, they take any little doll, any little toy, whatever it is, they'll wrap it up and pretend it's a baby. They'll pretend to nurse the baby, pretend to show them how to walk, how to eat, and change the diaper. And it's in them. It's just natural for them to have that in them. As opposed to boys, we just want to, run, jump, blow up stuff. And moms, they want to protect. They want to nurture. They want to nurse. And that's just God, the way God made women to be. And in those days, obviously, and it still is today, in those days, there was a blessing to have multiple children, to have children, period. And it was a desired thing for women as soon as they get married. That was their goal first, to get married. Then, of course, once they're married, they felt that it was a huge blessing to be with child. And after Hannah, year after year, not seeing signs of being pregnant, she began to pray. She began to pray. But see, back then, again, they desired to have kids. Nowadays, there's many people that feel like, okay, well, if I have kids now, it's going to get in the way of my career. If I have kids now, or we met people that say, well, I've been married for 20-some years, but I've never wanted children. I just don't like children. There's no scripture in the Bible that says, thou shalt have 20 kids. But it doesn't say you shall not have any kids. It's not something biblical that says you have to have or you don't get to have. That's something between you and your husband and God. But the Bible also says that children are a blessing from the Lord. And as they grow up, we don't feel like they're blessings. When they get of age and they start inputting their own 2 cents, their own opinions, and the parent is always wrong. They know everything. Verse 4 says, whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed the womb. Now, it doesn't say why he closed the womb. Maybe he was waiting for her to be ready for this specific son. Now, it doesn't specify that. But there's many times when we pray to God, say, God, I really want this. I really want this. Let it happen. And it says that year after year, they would go. And obviously, she went too and would pray. There's people that will say that, when you pray to God, pray. I've been told this, pray and just leave it at the feet of the Lord. And leave it alone. You brought your request, leave it to Him. And they believe, or they say that it's not having faith. If we pray it once and leave it there, and we pray more than one time, that's not having faith. It's actually the opposite. Because you're having faith that God would eventually hear your prayer, your request, praying for the same thing over and over and over until God hears you. We know that Hannah prayed over and over, year after year. And then see, it says that her husband will give her a double portion. This is different between quality and, what should I say, quantity. Because we can shower our wives with all kinds of gifts. Here, I bought you this ring, I bought you this, I bought you that. But really what she wants is our attention, our quality time with her. Just to hear her out, hear what she has to say. And yes, it's okay to bring her gifts. It's okay to, but she wanted her husband's attention. She wanted her husband's attention, her love. Later we see in verse 6 what he says. Look, verse 6, because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? I mean, he's there looking at his other wife, Peninnah, provoking Hannah, and he says, why are you sad? Why are you sad? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Obviously not, you dwarf. Obviously not. And then you're seeing your other wife provoking her, and you say nothing about it. And then you ask her why you're sad. That's one example of the many issues that arise from having multiple wives. But she did not retaliate. Hannah did not seek revenge against Peninnah. Those taunting words did get to her. It says to the point that she wept. So obviously it was multiple and severely probably words that were used, and it would hurt her. All she wanted was to have a son, to have a child. And see, like I explained earlier, women from young, they have that instinct, the mother instinct. You know, we use the cliche or the saying that it's a mama bear. Mama bear. They want to protect. They protect. You know, now that I have a boy, you know, I'm starting to play rough with them. And whenever I throw them up into the air or I push them or I punch them, I mean, I don't punch them to knock them out. But, you know, Remember, we'll be like, don't be so rough with them, because that's her instinct. She just wants to be loving. Wives just want to be loving. Moms just want to protect. You know, I don't punch them and send them flying across the room. Like, so you try to beat me now. And for them to bear a child, to be, they're giving life. They carry this child with them. It's part of them for 9 months. So now, after giving birth, they still have that attachment. Obviously, they want to hold them. Now, I've carried you for 9 months in my womb. I get to meet you in person. I get to see you. I'm pretty sure you heard about the recent story of what, a couple of weeks ago here in San Antonio, about those 8 children that were found at the northeast side of San Antonio. 2 of them being chained in the backyard, tied with a dog leash, having broken ribs, or was a leg, bruised ribs, wrist. I mean, I read it first, then I heard about it on the radio. But when I read it, I mean, it just like, something inside of me just like crunched my heart. It's like, ouch. And then to know that these other 6 children were inside the home from 6 months to, I believe it was 13-year-old. And I don't know which one was which. The mother showed up. I don't know if she was the mother of the 2 that were outside or the 6 that were inside. And she's the one who got arrested. Obviously, she had to be arrested. But the dad, how could they not do something to the dad? He was taken in for questioning, but that's all they did. And I haven't followed up with the story. I know they found the parents of the other children. But see, we see the story, we see this incident happening. And as it was described in the news article, it says that to call it horrific was short of a word to describe it. It is horrific. You know, we only hear about it, we only see it in movies. But to happen this close to where, I mean, this is our home, San Antonio. I look at it this way. What happened in the mind, in the heart of this mother, and the mother that left their children there? Something had to happen in her heart and her mind. Obviously, we know the Lord is not in her. It's not there in this home. It's there with the kids. And I pray that as these kids grow up, that they don't have this polluted picture that that's how a godly father is, that will allow something horrible to happen to them. But see, what happened to this mom? What happened? Something had to happen. Of course, they're going to prosecute her, they're going to investigate her, but the deep truth, they're not going to search. You know, what happened to you? What happened in your background? What happened to your heart? Where was the Lord? How come you don't have the Lord in your life? Verse 9. Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. We know that she was provoked to the point of weeping. So obviously she just said, I had it. But again, she did not seek revenge against her opponent, her rival. She just went to God and prayed. Verse 11, and she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, how long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. The vow of a Nazarite, meaning that they will not use a razor on their head for a period of time that they will make a vow. In this case, it was the rest of his life, meaning that, and it explains it in Numbers 6, verse 1 through 8, that they will not use a razor, period, to shave, to cut their hair, anywhere. Because the word Nazarite, meaning Nazar, means to set apart for a special use. In this case, it's a special, holy, used by God. In another scripture, we know that other people were set apart for God. And in this case, Hannah makes a vow to God. God, I want the son, but once I get the son, I want to give him back to you forever. Forever. It doesn't matter if I don't get to have him with me, as long as I get a son, because remember, having a son, having children was a blessing. Not having children was a curse in those days. And then Eli comes in to the temple and sees her praying. And he thinks she's drunk because he sees the mouth moving, but hears nothing. And he tells her, what are you doing? It's probably noontime. Get out of here. Stop drinking. Put away your beer. But see, Hannah was so full of anguish, of sorrow, and pain after being mistreated. And even though she comes to the temple where God is supposed to be there, he is there, this person that's representing God comes over and still humiliates her even more. Stop drinking. Put away your wine. Even though she still gets insulted. Hannah rebukes him in a lovingly manner. Says, not so, my Lord. I am pouring out my anguish to God. I am praying to him. I'm not drunk. I'm just simply praying from my heart. And see, she was praying in her heart, quietly, not audibly. And there's something here too, there's people that say that whenever you pray audibly, out loud, some people said, I don't want the enemy to hear my prayers because he's going to hear, he's going to know, and he's going to do something to provoke me, to oppose me. But see, if you pray something and it lines up with the Lord's will, regardless of how much the enemy wants to oppose it, it still will come to pass. Now, there's nothing wrong with praying, in silence, simply praying from your heart. The enemy can't read our minds. Eli said, verse 17. Eli answered, go in peace, and may God of Israel grant you what you have asked for him. He probably was like, yeah, sure. Just, you said you pray. That's fine. I pray that he grants you whatever you ask for. Early the next morning, she said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. So she ate. And obviously her complexion probably came back. And at the same time, knowing she probably ate because now she feels like, I left it at the feet of my God. I left it there. I believe that he's going to answer my prayer. So now I can go back. Not forgetting. She didn't forget about that. Now I can go back and continue on with my life. I can eat now. Verse 19, early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. See, in the course of time, she didn't wake up the next morning and say, I feel kind of queasy. I think I'm pregnant now. The next morning, they just simply rose and worshiped God. And in the course of time, doesn't specify how much time, the Lord gave her a son. When her husband Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. Verse 23, do what seems best to you. Her husband Elkanah told her, stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until he had been weaned. In those times, average time of being weaned was about 5 years old. So the baby, Samuel, stayed with his mom, until about the age of 5. But I want you to see something. We read almost all the chapter 1, and it's a long period of time. How many times have we seen actually engaging with concern for his wife, Elkanah? Hannah was the one taking action to pray to God to be with child. She's the one who made a vow. And she's still saying, I'm going to keep the promise. Now, obviously, we know he's not perfect, but at the same time, what I want to point out here is that husbands, fathers, it takes more than one person to raise a child. It takes more than one person to conceive a child. And as you go to a sperm bank, but still you need a second person to donate that sperm. We live in a time where anybody can, well, actually not anybody, just because anybody goes out, hangs out, parties, they get pregnant, oh well, it's not my child, it's up to you to raise him now. And the father is who knows where. They take no responsibility. Or us husbands, we feel like our main responsibility is to provide and go to work, come back, I'm tired, leave me alone. Let me turn on the football game or the Spurs. No. Once we get home, and it's as hard as it may be, because now your mind is fried, your body is tired, that's when the real work begins. Now having to raise children. Because your wife, if she's a stay-at-home mom, she's been with the children all day long. Or if she's a working mom, she's tired too. Don't expect her to come home after 8, 10, 12 hours of work and expect to have a home-cooked 4-course meal. What are you doing, husband? I understand, not every day are you able to do this, but at the same time, don't let 4 days out of the 5 work week be when you say, oh, I'm tired. And only one day, I'll do the dishes, honey. So say, verse 24 says, after he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with the 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, remember me? Remember you were saying I was drunk? Pardon me, my Lord. As surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me when I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord for his whole life. He will be given over to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. Hannah gave the son back to God. You know, about the age of 5 years old, she said, here, you're staying at the temple for the rest of your life. I'm giving him, God, I'm giving him back to you. I'm giving him back to you, God. And there comes a time when a child is no longer covered under the grace that we have as parents, because they need to have their own relationship. Now, Jesus has to become real to them. They lived under the umbrella. They had that innocence. But now, it comes a point where now, there's no specific, 10 years old, 7 years old. There's no specific time. That's when they understand that God, Jesus, has to be accepted into their hearts by their own will. So there comes a time when, as difficult as it is, we have to give them over to the Lord and let Him be the one to deal with them. So Hannah says, here, God, I give him back to you. Chapter 2, verse 1, it says, then Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over the enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Do not keep talking so proudly, or let your mouth speak such arrogance, for the Lord is God who knows, and by Him deeds are weighed. The bows of the warriors are broken, the bows of the warriors are broken, but those who stumble are armed with strength. Those who were full hired themselves out for food, but those who were hungry are hungry no more. Pay attention to this. She who was barren has borne 7 children. That means after Samuel, she still had 6 more children. But she who has had many sons pines away, meaning Penina. She pines away. The word pines away means that she became so angry, full of jealousy, that she became bitter herself. Because at first, remember, she would taunt her and make herself proud. Look at all the children, look at all these blessings that God had given me. And now, but she who has many sons pines away. Ladies, I can't speak on behalf of you guys as to what you feel, what you think, how you are in your heart towards your children. But as I see, as an example with my own wife, I see how she tries to be tough, but at the same time I can see the pain coming through. You know, the love that also comes through her. There's desires, there's goals, there's wishes that don't get fulfilled. And to be a mom, there's no words that can describe how important the role of a mom is. You know, we're going to close with a video and a song to explain a little bit more about what the mom feels. Go ahead, Daniel, play the video.
I'm a perfectionist, and so that's hard with kids. There's definitely days when I have my doubts about my abilities. I struggle with my temper. I struggle with how I react with situations. I wish I knew how to, I guess, just calm myself before speaking to them. I wish I was better at taking time to sit down and just listen more to my child. I wish I was more confident in being a mom. I'm not the most patient person in the world.
Patience. Patience is far and away probably the biggest struggle.
I just want them to know just how much I love them.
My mom is totally awesome. She's fun to snuggle with. Pretty, funny. She does cook a lot of food for me. She's just unique. That's why I love her so much. We go on dates together. We go shopping. She loves me a lot. I have a lot of favorite things about my mom. We like to watch movies together and color and stuff.
We go to church together, we volunteer together. She is like my heart, I guess you could say, because she's that close to me.
My favorite thing is to jump on a trampoline with my mom. That's my most favorite thing, to go up high. We get ice cream or something and you go to the nail salon and have fun. My mommy's my hero. She's pretty and beautiful.
She is my hero.
She just will care about me and just always love me forever. She's the best.
That's so awesome.
I always seem to focus mostly on the negative, and I guess I can walk out here and say that I'm doing something great and that my child is viewing me in totally different lenses as I view myself. So that's inspiring.
This is my calling. This is my job. This is what I love to do, and I will do it better
and with love each and every day, because those kids count on me and they love me for what I'm doing.
And see, I know you guys, I mean you ladies had goals, had dreams to become career this, career that, whatever it is. And where you're at right now, that's what God has you. He prepared you for such a time as this. For this year, for this day, this place, with this child. And if you ladies, just moms, stand up. Let's all give them a big applause. You may have a seat. And now let's close in prayer, but lifting them up in prayer. Lord,